Hey guys, what's going on? Bofeity here? Back from the dead just in time for Halloween. Speaking of resurrecting corpses from the past, our new friends over at Blue Dot Games are resurrecting the Once Dead project, and some would even say the spiritual successor to our beloved Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. And it's called 83, the game. So settle in and let's talk about a video game demo. I had the chance to play 83 during their demo early access version of the game during their Steam Next Fest event. Steam tells me I played around 28 hours. How much of that was playing on a server with just 8 people? We'll never know. It's a little bit of a tough position to be in to judge a game from a small demo that they themselves ask you in their own survey. Is it ready for early access? I said no. But early access these days is such a spectrum that I wouldn't blame them for going to early access with this content and whatever else they may have behind closed doors. No, overall I would say most people seem to enjoy the demo, and most accepted it for what it was, a demo of a game that's not even in early access. People were playing throughout the week, and the servers would have probably been fuller if the servers didn't drop you after 2 rounds. Now I will say the game did seem to have vocal opponents of the demo's quality, and I can understand that. It was in a very rough state of the game to put out to the public. Now I will say, every game did seem to have vocal opponents of the demo's quality, and I can understand that. This was a very rough state of the game to put out to the public. It's probably safe to say that it's only uphill from here, and the version that is released for the actual early access will be much improved, assuming the feedback from this demo is implemented accordingly. Now for me, your old friend, a game that can keep you coming back without relying on a progression or itemization treadmill is pretty hard to come by in the modern gaming landscape. Rising Storm 2 Vietnam, for me, was probably one of the best examples of this. Though Red Orchestra 2 and Rising Storm 1 definitely did as well, and Hell Let Loose. I wanted to play Rising Storm 2 not because I felt like I needed to keep up with anyone, progression or itemization wise, but simply because of the gunplay experience. Yes, it did also have really well done helicopters, which helped give you a break from the monotony that FPS games can have. But the gunplay had to be the foundation of the game. The gunplay in it was near perfect to play. It was crisp, clean, and responsive. You shot people and they died, and you could shoot through walls and objects, and the recoil of the weapons felt appropriate. Now 83 to me did remind me of Rising Storm 2 a lot, but it didn't hook me right away. I had to tweak some settings, and that definitely got it closer to that feel, but again, we were playing such an early version of this game, we can only assume it will get better. One of the shortfalls these Unreal Engine games have for me is that they can never really accurately represent peep or aperture sights. I believe they said that this was a limitation of the engine, so I just accepted that and moved on. This was said for Rising Storm 2, which was on Unreal Engine 3. 83, however, is now on Unreal Engine 5. But apparently that shortcoming still remains. You will just have to shoot through a tiny glory hole on most NATO weapons. Because of this, the Warsaw Pact guns just played better for me, and tracking moving targets was much easier than compared to the M16 or the grease gun. The M16, despite using a birdcage flash hider and 20-inch barrel, an obnoxiously large star-shaped muzzle flash that made tracking sprinting targets through your little glory hole sight from a distance much harder than it needs to be, and much harder than the opposing force's AK-74s. Time to kill is also another important aspect to me with FPS games, because I just can't handle lighting someone up with a rifle caliber, only to see them jump around and live behind cover. 83 overall seemed to have a decent time to kill. There were only a couple times with an M16 or MP5 that I noticed someone eating bullets to where I reacted at all. These things are easy enough to tweak around though, so I try to be optimistic given the state of the demo. Like I said, it's a little hard to talk about this game because of the numerous bugs that players encountered. I had a whole list of issues that I encountered that I included in the feedback survey, but most of them I'm sure they were already aware of. However, one aspect from Rising Storm 2 that was pretty crucial to me for taking longer shots in game was the ability to use shift to get a little extra zoom and stability while aiming down the sight. This was seemingly missing completely from the demo. Even though the menu had an interface option to add a hold aim button to hold breath/zoom, it didn't seem to work. This made longer range shots a bit tougher, but I assume that will be addressed as well. Likewise, using a window or box for added stability and or deploying a bipod on was very hit or miss. A window would be too high to crouch behind to utilize this deployment, while also seemingly be too low to stand behind and deploy on. The most frequent bugs I noticed were mostly with prone, mantling, and having to reload, even though you had already reloaded, sometimes multiple times. And the placement of squad spawns, which sometimes worked just fine and other times would not work until you died and respawned. Now, if you played Rising Storm 1 at all, you certainly were either a fan of or hated the Japanese knee mortar. Well, guess what? Your old friend is back, and possibly even better. I believe you got 6 40mm rounds with a 1-second reload time, and you could nearly instantly switch back to your main weapon with just the press of a key. I also noticed on the GP25 that you had a mortar type 0 at the end of the adjustment wheel, though in my testing they did not seem to work. The ability to shoot a grenade in a window, down a hallway, or across the map so easily was extremely strong, which is also probably why the class was limited to, I think, 3 per team. Plus, you could resupply the grenades on a relatively short cooldown. I could shoot all the grenades, and usually by the time I was out, the resupply cooldown was up. The Grenadier class was easily my favorite in the demo, with the Special Forces MP5SD and AK-74U after that. So I enjoyed those, and I'm sure there will be other weapons added, as we didn't get to see any of the British weaponry yet. Now, the demo map, which was called Fjord, was said to be the smallest map they have, and had a bit of a funky layout for objectives. I personally just prefer a simple north-south or east-west oriented map, and this one was a bit more staggered, with objectives C and D being in kind of a odd position. The map was relatively clear to see despite it being at night. A lot of people did not tweak their graphic settings, so the experience changes depending on how low you crank it. As far as the graphics go, the weapons looked great, but the player models leave a bit to be desired. Probably a work in progress, as there's currently little variation and no weathering, but there are customization options already built into the UI. I can only hope we don't see Special Forces wearing silly colored berets when the game launches. As for the rest of the game, if you told me this game came out in 2025 or 2026, I would not believe you. Granted, I'm not playing on max settings, but when I did, by default, it was not impressive, nor would I ever want to play an FPS on those settings. I think Rising Storm 2 and Hell Let Loose were good examples of having a good balance of visibility, appearance, and performance. The UI is definitely very Red Orchestra / Rising Storm inspired, so that's good. Voice chat still needs some work, and it is refreshing to come back to a game with an already familiar UI, and also the character voice lines, which was such a great aspect of the previous franchises. Ultimately, I think the project is in a good place, all things considered, with the development being picked up by Blue Dot Games. I tried to see who from the previous franchises is working on this one, and I could only find Tony Gilliam and Chris Rickard being named. Now, these types of games rely on new maps to stay alive, so hopefully they once again will tap into the community for custom maps. My biggest takeaway from this demo was that if you're looking for something akin to the Rising Storm 2 gameplay, this will probably be as close as it gets. So I think the demo was successful in that regard. It gave people a little glimpse into what's coming and hopefully created some new fans. So that's it for this little 83 demo talk video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.